Hello. Well, April 19th, we are almost there. We are ending our last week of classes. I hope that you have, done the best that you can with the circumstances we've been given. And I hope that you're all doing as well as you possibly can. My best advice to you as you're looking ahead, not just for this class, but for your other classes, is finish strong. 100% finish strong. You're almost there. So let's just go in and get it done and do the very best we can. And I'm going to share with you tonight some ways of doing that for this class. So you are almost done with your final paper. And as you know, throughout the entire semester, every single thing has been working toward this moment. When we were back doing that preliminary bibliography, I said, hold on, it's going to make a difference. It's going to be useful for you in your final paper. And hopefully it has been with your rationale. I'm going to be working on providing you with feedback on the intro and rationale either tonight or tomorrow morning. And so I look forward to reading that. As you did the section about your initial resources and additional popular press articles and things like that. I said, hang on. Hopefully that'll be useful in the rationale of thinking about your research questions, and hopefully that has too. As we went through doing the study, and I talked about IRB, and I talked about your methods of data collection, hopefully all of that has been useful as you brought that together in your methods section. And then we did the focus groups, and we talked about them, and all of the groups have had opportunity to think about your initial claims and things like that. And 2 weeks ago, you all started playing with those and thinking, what are the claims we can make? And now we're going to bring all that full circle and put it all together. This week is super important. I was a little disappointed. Last week we had a couple of groups who didn't turn in anything at all, and almost half of the groups not turn in one of the assignments. This is not the time to be not participating. This is not the time to not be contributing as a group. This is super important as a group to be working together and to continue to persevere. And here's the thing. I know some of you might be saying, Dr. Beck, they said we could take it pass fail. All we have to do is pass, right? All you have to do is pass. And so many of these points that we have in our class are weighted on this final paper. If a group fails a final paper, the group will have trouble getting a C in the class. It will almost be mathematically impossible. Each group needs to at least get a C on their final paper. And I'm here to tell you I'm not changing my expectations for the paper. Those have stayed consistent all along. And so as a group, you need to be making it the best possible work you can. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that because I am being honest with you, like I have been from day one. From day one, I've said that's needed to be a paper that you would be proud to send to a convention as an undergraduate student. It needs to be something that you would be proud to send. Right? That's what I'm looking for in these papers. I'm giving you opportunity to have feedback on the different sections. You're going to have a peer editing process where you're going to be able to provide feedback on another ones. You're having opportunities to get the feedback on these materials, but you have to invest the work. And I can't provide you feedback, and your peers can't provide you feedback if you haven't got it done. All right, so with that said, let me go ahead and turn my attention now to talking through how you do finish strong and what you need to do this week to continue on your efforts. In just a few minutes after I finish taping this video, I'm going to upload it as well as the PowerPoint slides to the Blackboard site. I encourage you, obviously you're watching the video, but to go through the PowerPoint slides as well. There's no additional reading for this week. All of our efforts this last week and during final exam week are on this paper. So you have ample time to get this done. All right, so for this week, we're working on finalizing the paper, and the three main things that you need to be doing this week. Number one, you're going to finalize your draft of the findings. Number two, you're going to finalize your draft of the conclusion and discussion section. And number three, you're going to be revising your prior drafts of the introduction, rationale, and methods section based on feedback I'm going to give to you. All right, so let's talk through that a little bit. What should this finding section be? You've already got stuff there, right? You already have some initial claims, and I provided you with feedback on those, plus data. that's a very rough and raw beginning of your findings section. Now you're going to develop it. You're going to flesh it out and make it. And if you're confused about what this could look like, go back to those articles we read at the beginning of the semester, those example research articles from communication scholars in our department. A lot of you like Dr. Aiden's article on the townies. Go back to that and look at how he described the findings. It wasn't just like excerpt, 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 excerpt. Instead, there were words connecting them. There are arguments formulated, and that's kind of what I'm talking to you tonight. But if you're looking for an example, go back and look at that. All right, so what should the findings section do? The findings section should do 3 key things. First of all, it should answer the research questions, okay? And I've already given you permission that if some of you had like 3 or 4 research questions, if you only want to answer 2 of them in this particular paper, that's fine with me, okay? You should articulate core arguments based on the data. So you've already gone through and looked at that data. And that's fantastic. See how that's all weaving into this paper, right? These claims, these arguments should be extending from that data. And then third, you're presenting your data to support your core claims. Okay, so you've come up with what these claims are based on the data, and then you've interjected or inserted data to support why you think that these claims are accurate. All right, let me take each of those one by one. So answering the research questions. Based on the data, you are going to advance well-argued, well-reasoned, and well-documented answers to each of the research questions. Well-reasoned, meaning showing how you came up with it. Well-argued, meaning that you are making a claim and you're defending it. And well-documented means you are inserting that evidence, your data. Your data is your evidence, okay? So if you've ever taken argumentation class or even public speaking, the persuasion part of it, when you are integrating that evidence to support your claims, that's what you're doing here. You're supporting your claims, right? And then based on your data, consider any possible alternate explanation to your claim. Like, would there be another reason why, another possible idea that you can have for this data other than what you're advancing, right? And think, would another reasonable person look at this and come up with another explanation for that, okay? And think, well, no, I mean, like, no, this is how I'm arguing this makes a lot of sense. I don't see any alternate explanations. But if you do, and you're like, what do I do now, Dr. Beck? If you say, well, you know, is there another way we could interpret this? Then go ahead and insert your explanation for why your explanation is best in your paper, okay? And as I read through your initial findings based on your argumentation at the end of this week, I will ask those questions, and then you'll have an opportunity to respond to those as you go back and finalize it for submitting for a grade. Articulating core arguments, what do I mean by that? It means based on your data, what are the key arguments that should be advanced in answering the research questions you've asked? And you have already taken this step, many of you, okay? Many of you have already taken this step by coming up with really very clear-cut themes. And these themes are clear, and they're concise, and they're precise, and they are to the point. And I gave you all the examples about the celebrity health narrative project I was working on. Instead of having a lot of rambling wording about celebrities coming up with websites and coming up with foundations and all of that other stuff, instead of said they took an advocacy role, to the point, okay? Most of your groups have now revised those claims so that you are doing that, but if you have not yet done that, that's what you need to do before you move forward. And then you're going to provide those excerpts from the data, and you're going to weave them in. But it's not just going to be excerpt, 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 excerpt. Instead, you're going to take another step with that in terms of building your argument. And here's how you're going to do that. You're going to present that data as support. So you've got a main claim, and then you're weaving in the data as support, as evidence, right? Here it tells you why you're making the argument you're making. And you're going to weave in multiple excerpts from the data. And why do you need to do that? Because because one participant said something doesn't necessarily mean that represents all of the data, right? You should be choosing excerpts that are representative of your data and also provide multiple examples of it. So you can say, well, this wasn't just an odd situation where one person said something and I'm trying to support a claim. No, multiple people said something that would lead us to make this claim, okay? You're going to use your own words to connect those excerpts and describe why the data supports the claims, why it supports that particular claim. And then when possible, think back to that rationale section when I said, think about communication concepts or theories that would help you explain it. Weave those back in. You know what? In my Celebrity Health Narrative Project, I talked about privacy management theory, and that was a theory that was really helpful in explaining why some of the celebrities had challenged or hesitated a little bit in terms of thinking about going ahead and providing their story. They didn't necessarily want to share their privacy boundary. And so as I was talking about why, for example, Michael J. Fox hesitated to bring forth his story, I was able to weave that theory back in and say, you know, as Sandra Petronio argued, this is a challenge for people because they don't necessarily want to expand their privacy boundaries to include everybody in the world, right? So to the extent that you possibly can, think about those concepts and think about those theories to help you explain the data. And that will enrich your project. All right, so what I've spent a good part of my time this evening talking about is the findings section. What I'd like to do now is talk about finalizing that discussion and conclusion section. So in your discussion and conclusion section, you are going to make sure you summarize the point of the study and your primary findings, especially now that you've gone back and you've fleshed out the findings section, you've provided more substance to it, maybe a few more examples and reasoning, you'll be able to expand what you do in that discussion and conclusion section. You're going to tell why this study is important, and again, weaving it back to what we already know or did not know about communication and bullying. And then finally, you're going to acknowledge your limitations. And obviously, we looked at college students. I believe every single participant in our study was between 18 and 22 or something like that. And they're all college students, right? And so that means we can't extend what these findings were to maybe people who would be in other generations or non-college educated students. We can't, or non-college educated individuals in that same population, just because we don't have data to support that. Right? We are limited by the demographics of our participants. But also think about other limitations we might have in the study and go ahead and note them in your discussion section. So we talked this evening about the findings and about the discussion and conclusion section. I'd like to now talk a little bit about how you finalize this entire manuscript. Well, after you receive feedback from me about the intro, rationale, method section, go back through and make those changes. If I've asked you questions, go ahead and include that information. Definitely go back through and make sure that you look at the whole document in terms of APA 7th edition, in terms of your citation. I will not be providing you with line edited comments. Instead, I will let you know that, okay, you need to look at this particular issue, then fix it through the document, right? And you need to read back through your entire document and make sure it reads as though it's coming in one voice. A number of the groups have told me, they've confided in me that they've got one person writing one section and another person writing another one and a third person writing a third. And, you know, as long as everybody's contributing to those sections, I don't have a problem with it. I understand this idea about like dividing and mastering it in that way. I get that. But as you go back through, you've got to have somebody read it through for consistency, okay? You can't have somebody, one person slipping into second person like I just did and saying you instead of I, or instead of they, which is third person, right? You have to have that same consistency throughout. If you've got one person who writes in a lot of passive voice, which really isn't very good with APA, and then you've got other people writing really actively, it's going to be really evident that different people wrote the manuscript. Instead, it has to read with one voice. And then finally, you need to make sure that you're looking at that bibliography, your reference section. All of the things that you cited in your piece need to be cited in the reference list, except for citing interviewees. You don't need to do that for EP. You don't need to say Billy, because you're trying to make them anonymous anyway. You don't cite who the individual interviewees are, but anytime you cite a text or a show or something like that, that has to be cited in your reference section, and it must be done according to APA 7th edition. That's going to take some time, okay? So what I've asked you to do is that by Wednesday at 2, I want you to send me the product of, let's see, I think it's workday number 9. Yes, workday number 9. Send me your findings and your conclusion. Send me that by 2 p.m. on Wednesday. On Wednesday then, Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to be looking through and providing feedback to you. Because by Friday at midnight, your group needs to upload your entire manuscript on the designated discussion board thread, workday number 10. So for workday number 9, you are emailing me your findings and conclusion. For workday number 10, you are uploading it to the discussion board. And why am I doing that? Because your group is going to receive peer feedback from another group. And I'll explain how that process is going to go in an email later this week. Okay? But if you look on the syllabus, you'll note that team such and such has been assigned to review, provide peer feedback on the manuscript for another team, okay? And so all of the teams need to have all of the manuscripts available on Blackboard, okay? Now, they are going to be available there, so you can look and see what other groups are doing, okay? You're going to be doing that for the peer feedback anyway. But I caution you, don't be doing any plagiarizing, okay? You can certainly look and see, and say, wow, I forgot, our group forgot to do that, we're going to add that in. That's fine. But you don't take what other people have written and insert it in your paper, because I'm going to know who wrote it originally, okay? So there's that. But anyway, that's why you need to upload it on the designated discussion board, so that all groups have access to your work, so that you can receive the peer feedback. So you'll receive that peer feedback by next Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, but next Tuesday, and then you'll be able to finalize your paper. I will not be giving you any additional feedback as of Friday night. I will have already given you feedback on each section. You're going to be getting that peer feedback, but then your group is going to go back through and make any final changes you want to make to your manuscript before you ultimately turn it in. So, in a nutshell, this week and next week are all about working on this final paper and making sure it's as good as you possibly can, okay? In closing, I want to say that I'm really pleased of all the work that you all have done. I'm really pleased for the data that you've collected. I would just strongly encourage all of you, for all of your classes, even though you can certainly take them pass-fail, you need to pass, okay? You need to finish strong. So not just for this class where you've got the paper, but for your other classes where you're taking tests and things like that, you need to still get that C, all right? You still need to, and if you're taking this class for a grade, because a number of you do have A's going in this class and can bolster your GPA, but you need to make sure you're finishing strong. Okay? If you have any questions, I'm available by email all the time. Just feel free to send me an email. I look forward to talking to most of the groups tomorrow. Most of the groups have scheduled a time with me to meet by Zoom. Anyway, email me with your questions, and I look forward to reading your work this week. Thank you. Have a great week.